So let's talk about the end of DEI, the end of the trans progress, the slavish attention that our country has paid to the trans community over the last decade is finally coming to a halt. And now the reversal seems to be well underway. The Trump administration has made it their intentions known now that they will not grant visas, my friends, to the trans community who wants to come over to try and play in the Olympics. This is from Breitbart. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, a Department of Homeland Security agency, has announced that it will no longer be granting visas to biological males trying to compete in women's sports. In other words, men with penises trying to play in women's sports where their penises shouldn't be. In a press release, the USCIS explained that it would, quote, affirmatively protect all female athletic opportunities by granting certain athlete-related petitions and applications that had previously been abused and offered to men only to women. The press release added that this would ensure that biological foreign males seeking immigration benefits aren't coming to the U.S. to participate in women's sports. The spokesman, Matthew Tregesser, said men do not belong in women's sports, adding that the agency was, quote, closing the loophole for foreign male athletes whose only chance at winning elite sports is to change their gender identity, meaning they are taking opportunities away from homegrown women who were born that way. Now, the spokesperson added that it is a matter of safety, fairness, respect, and truth that only female athletes receive a visa to come to the U.S. to participate in women's sports. The Trump administration is standing up for the silent majority who have long been victims of leftist policies that defy common sense. About time. You know, this whole thing has been insane from the moment of inception. You know, it always bothered me that the party that was always advocating for science, we must listen to the science. You know, when it came to climate change, the science. When it came to whatever issue, it was always about the science. Remember the vaccines? The science. Follow the science, people. But when it came to biology, when it came to the most basic of basic sciences, whether you're a man or a woman, suddenly it didn't matter. Suddenly we couldn't really know. What about your chromosomes? Doesn't matter. What about science? Didn't matter either. Everything was fluid. Everything was retarded. And the average person knew that this was insane. But cancel culture had reached a fevered pitch. People were being yeeted off the internet. They were being canceled at every turn, debanked. You couldn't say the obvious truth. You couldn't point out that the emperor didn't have clothes because social media, in tandem with the government, were colluding to silence anyone who had anything to say. And then the mob did the rest. They would dox you. They would try to point out where you came from, try to get you fired from your job for saying what was so patently obvious, so stupidly obvious. But the world had to fall in line, had to listen to this retardedness about men with penises being women now. Don't you think about it. Don't worry about it. But of course, that was never enough for the mob. You didn't just have to look the other way. You had to agree or else. Thus the pronouns in bio. The vile idiocy of the radical left wasn't content to merely control the narrative. They were trying to force you to think the way they wanted you to think. The thought police were out in force. The Karenocracy was exuding its power in a way that had never been done before. But they girl bossed too close to the sun, these Karens. They went after children. And people finally lost their minds over it. After over a decade of tyranny, people just don't care anymore. They should have left the children alone. Maybe they'll learn next time if there is a next time. Anyway, doesn't say who this is from, but this is a post on X saying men do not belong in women's sports. We're dedicated to opposing male participation in women's sports as a matter of safety, fairness, respect, and truth. In support of Executive Order 14201, keeping men out of women's sports, we've clarified eligibility for certain visa. So yeah, they're going to knock this down, and it's a good start. And my guess is this will be the excuse for other countries who also know that it is patently insane and absurd to also follow along. Like after the Olympics, after the 2028 Olympics, I expect transgenders to continue to be banned from operating in female sports. Because make no mistake, transgenders are not going to male sports. It is only the female sports for the most obvious of obvious reasons. That is, men are the bigger, stronger sex. It's just the way it is.